I was working at Charlestown Retirement Community in Baltimore, which is part of the Erickson Retirement Communities, and it's a 2,000 resident campus, so it was like a little town. I was like the mayor of a little town, and I loved it. I was there 10 years and was going to retire from there, but my wife and I said, when we retire, let's go by the water. So we were looking at Bethany Beach, Chincoteague, Colonial Beach, Virginia, and coming back from a family reunion in New Jersey, 95 was backed up, so I said, let's go down the Eastern Shore. We never go here anyway. And we got to Chestertown and said, oh, this is Chestertown people talk about. There's Washington College. We said, well, let's get lunch. And if the little hotel, the Holiday Inn, takes dogs, let's stay. We wound up staying 3 days, looked around, said, this is where we want to retire to. This was in August of 2011. 4 months later, there was an ad in our long-term care journal looking for an executive director for Heron Point. So lo and behold, I applied, was blessed to get the job, and then we came here in June of 2012.
That's cool.
Yeah, and absolutely love Chestertown. Yeah. Initially started as a clinical person, and we're from New Jersey, my wife and I. She was a nurse. We met at Hackensack Hospital. I was a paramedic, then a respiratory therapist, and got into respiratory management. Then we moved upstate New York, the little town of Catskill, New York, which in my conversations I always compare it to Chestertown, same size, you know, one hospital on a river. So we lived in Catskill and went to Tyson's early fights. We used to watch him train, you know. And while I was there, I went from respiratory therapy to hospital administration. So I got in hospital administration there. We had an attached nursing home to the hospital. And because I'm a history buff, I started talking to the residents there about where they came from. And I talked to this guy from World War II, World War I, and actually videotaped him in 1985, Bill Price, a Marine from World War I. And I still have the videotape of him talking about World War I, you know. So that was pretty cool. But then we didn't like the cold weather, so after 10 years up there, my sister lives in Maryland, and we moved down here to Chestertown, and they transferred. I worked at Laurel Hospital. I was still in acute care, but then I got back into long-term care, because long-term care is all about history. The residents there, everybody has interesting lives. It's just a treasure of stories. I mean, all the history of all the people I met could be a 3-hour conversation with their lives, you know, and that's what got me into long-term care, without a doubt. Okay, and I'll just give you the definition. So there's assisted living, which are people who need some assistance. Then there's nursing homes, where people need more assistance. Then there's continuing care retirement communities, or life plan communities, which have all 3 levels of care. Have independent living, if they need it. Then there's assisted living, and if they need it, then there's a nursing home. So Heron Point is a continuing care retirement community, or a life plan community, managed by ACTS Retirement Communities out of Pennsylvania, who has 26 campuses up and down the East Coast. So in Maryland, there's 250 nursing homes, there's hundreds of assisted living, and there's 37 retirement communities like Heron Point. So there's less of them, but they have the whole complement of care. So if you move in there independent and you need more service, you're in the same campus. And that's what makes it nice. Yeah, oh yeah, I jumped right in. I didn't think I'd get the job. I thought I was too old. I was like 62 at the time. And I got interviewed, and I said, look, I'll be honest with you, I'm 62. And they said, well, the last guy we hired was 65. So that wasn't a problem. But Heron Point had a good reputation all along. You know, they had some financial difficulties back in 2008 and 2009 with the collapse. And the company called Peninsula United Method Homes was the one that was managing that. But people weren't selling their houses. If they don't sell their houses, they can't move in. So they wound up actually going bankrupt, Peninsula United Methodist. And then ACTS Retirement Communities, ACTS, took over May 1st, 2010, and really has brought it to today. In fact, ACTS, we were the only campus in Maryland for years, and then just 2 years ago, they basically rescued Integrace Retirement Communities, which includes, was William Hill Manor, now it's Bailey Chase in Easton, and then Fairhaven in Sykesville, and the other one out in Frederick. I mean, I don't know. I think personally about the whole Saver Hospital thing, and just the articles we talked about a little while ago, people after COVID, getting out of the country, out of the city and coming to suburbs, and how Kent County is selling houses left and right. They have to build more houses, though. That's the other problem, I think. But, you know, having the fact that Saver Hospital Committee working with UMS and the community, you know, all these last 6 years, led by Jerry O'Connor, Dr. O'Connor, it worked out. it's smart. I mean, this hospital was going to be an urgent center or a freestanding medical center, and now the University of Maryland redid their priorities and thinking with all the things they're trying to juggle and said, all right, let's make this a rural hospital, so that helps them in reimbursement, and it keeps the acute care hospital here with less services right now. But for the people of Chestertown, including me and you, if we want to keep that hospital here, especially if there's future growth, we have to use the hospital. A lot of people go out of county for that. They go to Annapolis or they go to Christiana. The hospital here is going to stay and be solid only if we use it. So now the big talk is, hey, support your local hospital, use your local hospital. You're not going to do brain surgery there, but for all the other things less than that, this is the hospital to use. It's the first licensed rural hospital in Maryland. Even though there's hospitals in rural areas, Garret County down in Cambridge, that one was just converted to a freestanding medical center. The one McClellan down in Cambridge, yeah. Cambridge, the McClellan's down in I can't think of that town, way down south of Salisbury. But anyway, but here, because part of the argument for the Save Our Hospital and the community was, it's an hour to get to Easton, and if you live in Rock Hall or you live in Galena and it's bad weather or there's a problem, it's even further. So I think that was part of the whole thinking of to saying, let's just keep that hospital there, and now it's here. Well, I've said it so many times, I'll give you my spiel again, how I compared it to Catskill. When I was in Catskill, after I left, they closed that local, it was a town of 5,000 on a river, historic town of 5,000 on a river with one hospital. Well, the big hospital across the river took it over, started decreasing services, decreased OB and peds, et cetera, and then eventually it went down to an urgent center, and now it's just a paramedic station. The population of Catskill when we left in '88 was 5,000, and today it's 3,600. That's a big employer. That was always the biggest employer, that and the college here. So part of my spiel during the Save Our Hospital thing was always talking about that. Hey, listen, this hospital economically is a factor in keeping this hospital here. So I started in '85 talking to people about their history. I wish I started sooner. I've had Sitting Bull's great-granddaughter as a resident. I had a guy who was a prosecutor at Nuremberg as a resident. All sorts of cool historic stories. Tons of World War II stuff too, of course. And World War I. And I would always say in these spiel that I did with the local schools, I'd tell the high school kids and grammar school kids, go to your local nursing home and just talk to them. They're looking for someone to talk to anyway. Talk to them about their history, their life, and their relatives, and it's just fascinating,